Welcome back to the It's Too Easy podcast. It's the Lenny Bros back for week 3 of college football and week 2 of the NFL. So, Jake, what's the slate for the week?
Yeah, so college football isn't so fun this week. Not as many games that we like, but we did find a few picks that we did really like this week. First one I'm really liking is ASU money line going into Texas State. I know Texas State's a little bit better this year, but I feel like this is kind of disrespectful to ASU. I know they predicted them to go last in the ACC this year, or I think no, not in the ACC. In their division, I can't remember where they went, the Big 12, whatever it may be. But I feel like Dillingham has that team playing pretty good ball with their new quarterback in Levitt. So I feel like ASU money line is a solid play this week. Right now they're underdogs away, and I just feel like that's pretty disrespectful.
Yeah, and they just handled business against San Diego State by 3 scores, too, with it being a 6 point line going into that one. And so it worked for us last week. I agree. Texas State is kind of a no-name team. So it's strange that they're underdogs, and I like ASU.
Yeah, right on. And then the other Arizona team, Arizona U of A, their offense has been looking amazing. They go and play Kansas State this week, who had a tough game against Tulane last week. They were trailing for a majority of the game until Tulane made a few mistakes late, and Kansas State was able to capitalize. But it was still a great game. I do expect Arizona to cover in this game. They're 7.5 point dogs. I'm also taking them outright and with the money line. Plus 225 right now. You and I have been kind of all over Arizona since the start. We love Fafita and McMillan as their duo. They've
Hmm.
both just been incredible to start the season out, and there's just no reason not to ride them so far. Kansas State has looked pretty good. They are ranked somewhere in low 20s
14.
somewhere, or yeah, somewhere down there. But I just expect Arizona to be better in this game.
Yeah, I definitely like Arizona. They're getting 7.5, which I think will be interesting. I think this game's going to be more of a shootout, so I definitely like the over as well. I think the line was at 57. Um,
Oh yeah, I
I
love
think,
that.
I mean, you could buy it down even to the low 50s and still get good value. So I think both teams at least put up 24, probably 27. But yeah, I like Arizona in a shootout. I think Fafita can throw for 400, like he did week 1 versus New
Yeah,
Mexico. And McMillan had 300 yards that game. Then he only had, I think, 20 yards last week against Northern Arizona. It was kind of an off week. Now it's a short week on the road, so it might be tougher. I definitely think Arizona covers 7.5, and I do think they'll end up winning this game. Like we said at the beginning of the year, I think they win 10 games, have a shot at the college football playoff. More of a long shot, but love Fafita, love McMillan. And then on the other side of the ball, I do think Avery Johnson's been playing really well, no turnovers. And then DJ Giddens is a phenomenal running back. So one of the plays that I like for the game as a player prop is DJ Giddens over 80 yards. I think he could crack over 100 as well. I'm just worried that he ends up receiving a little bit more than he rushes if it ends up being a back and forth game. But yeah, McMillan's going over, I think, 100 and probably going
yeah,
to score. Giddens will probably get in the end zone with probably 100 yards as well. But Fafita's line also was 220, and I think he could throw potentially for 350. So I like that. I think it's going to be a high scoring, fun game, and I am hoping Arizona pulls it off.
yeah. We're definitely gonna have a lot of money on that one. So looking forward to watching that game. It's gonna be fun. And then we got Oregon State. This game's super early in the season. Obviously, with us moving to the Big Ten, we have to play this game early. So yeah, it sucks not having this one be the last game of the season. But Oregon State, the last few years, has always played us pretty well. And with the way Oregon's looked in the first couple of weeks, I just don't expect us to be able to cover 17.5 against this team. They beat San Diego State 21-0 last week, so their defense isn't half bad. I know our offense has had its struggles, but I do think we'll win this game. I just don't know, how ugly it's going to be. So for that reason, I'm taking Oregon State plus 17.5.
Yeah, I like 17.5. That's usually a big rivalry game. Like you said, it's not the end of the year, which is kind of strange.
Yeah,
But Oregon versus Oregon State, it's always a fun one. Oregon hasn't looked good so far. Obviously, they had a huge line week 1, 50 something points, won by a score. And then last week had a 20-point line, which we liked with Boise State, and Boise
yeah,
State ran all over and put up 31 or 34. So I think Oregon State should be able to cover 17. Um, just hoping this isn't the week that Oregon finally shows up.
yeah. I mean, I honestly don't think so. With the first 2 weeks, we just had they've been running the ball all over us, and that's just not
Mhm.
something that we're kind of used to. Dan Lanning's usually been the guy to kind of plug the trenches for us, but our freshmen haven't been able to do that consistently yet. So this is going to be a big test for those guys, and honestly, for our offense, like, are we going to be able to keep up for when they are able to run the ball? Because when they run it, they're going to be able to score. So it's going to be whether we're able to keep up. And honestly, I think that the 17.5 is probably going to be my lock of the weekend. And I hate to do it against my team, but just so far from what I've seen, I don't have a whole lot of trust in this Oregon team as a whole. So,
Hmm.
and then Wazoo is going in and playing Washington. That's going to be another banger, another classic rivalry game early in the season now that everybody's switched divisions. Um, I'm personally liking Wazoo. Their team has looked really good, even with getting rid of Cam Ward. They run the ball really well. They've looked really good against Texas Tech last week. So I
Hmm.
do think that the +5 is going to be the play there against Washington, even away.
Yeah, I'm interested in that game. Washington has looked good so far with Will Rogers and Jonah Coleman, both transferring over, but I definitely like Washington State. They always sling the ball well. And like you said, they're running the ball well this year so far. So if they can keep that going, I think they should pull it off and at least cover that 5, 6 point line.
Yeah. And then we got Georgia and Kentucky. Kentucky, I think, was a favorite last week, and they ended up getting blown out. I can't remember if that was at home, but anyways, Georgia's only a 23-point favorite or 24-point favorite. I'm going to take it. I think that Georgia's offense is starting to click. I think they're going to be able to put up probably 45 or 50 points, and then defense will be able to add to that. But I just expect that they're going to be able to cover 23 against this team that's struggling.
Yeah, Georgia should annihilate them.
Yeah.
Kentucky lost by 30 as a 10 or 15 point favorite at home against South Carolina, who's not good. So Georgia should be able to cover 23. I think that's a kind of generous line.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's going to be more so on the lower scoring side just because of the line being that low. Um, Kentucky, I don't really see scoring the ball,
Yeah.
probably 2 scores or less. So you'd think Georgia would cover.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe even 38-10, something like that. They still get 28 there. So I'm liking Georgia -24.
Hmm.
Then last one on the college slate. Well, actually, we have a couple more that we like, but my favorite, UCF and TCU. UCF's been putting up like 55, 60 points a game in the first couple. And on the flip side, TCU's offense has been pretty solid the first couple weeks. They got a quarterback that's seasoned and a veteran and actually knows the offense pretty well. So for me, I'm loving the over 60 in that game. I just expect both this to be another shootout, 45-41 or something along those lines. Just it's going to go over 60.
Yeah, these teams always have a high scoring game against each other, and like you said, Josh Hoover's seasoned. He's been there for a while. Should be able to sling the rock, and the same will happen against him because neither team's defense is very good. So 60 seems like a good line, but I do expect it to go over.
Yep. And then the last couple we got is Ole Miss to cover. I think the line was 22.5. I don't have it here in front of me.
Hmm.
I can't remember who they're playing. It was like Beth's Moon or something.
It
Or
wasn't Bethune, but I forget who it was.
I don't know. But yeah, we're taking Ole Miss -22.5. That line felt a little bit low. They've looked really good. Their offense has put up like 50 plus a game, and I don't think they've given up a single point so far this season. I think they're one of the only teams to not give up a point so far. So yeah, loving Ole Miss with the points
Definitely.
there. And then last game is what was the last one? Auburn.
New
They're getting
Mexico. Yeah.
28 points against New Mexico. New Mexico played Arizona last week. They lost 61-39, so they were able to put up decent amount of offense against Arizona's D. Now, granted, Arizona doesn't have the greatest defense, but I just think that in this next one, New Mexico is going to be able to cover 28 against Auburn after they just lost to Cal.
Yep. Yeah, Auburn hasn't been that good. It is interesting just because it's that SEC defense that could come out.
Yeah,
And I think they did put up 50 or 60 the first week, which is kind of unlike them. But New Mexico's been scoring the ball, so if they can, put up 20, I think covering 30 should be pretty easy for them.
yeah, yep. And I think that's going to wrap it about up for college football. But we're going to kind of transition over to NFL now. Super excited for week 2. Week 1 was a little bit rocky for us. Had a few picks that looked really good and had a few picks that lost late. But overall, I think we ended up around even. So let's try and bounce back a little bit this week. First game is the Bears and the Texans. We've been kind of back and forth on this, but I like the Texans -6 in this game. The Bears offense obviously struggled a little bit with Caleb in the first week. I expect them to be a little bit better, but I don't think their defense is going to be able to handle CJ Stroud in week 2. So that's the main reason I'm taking Texans.
Yeah, I'm just going to take the Texans money line because, like you said, we're kind of going back and forth on it. I think the Bears could cover 7.5.
Hmm.
It's a weird line. Their defense obviously looks good, and the Texans defense got torn apart by Anthony Richardson, so I expect Caleb to bounce back a little bit. I could see the Bears defense getting maybe a turnover, which could keep it close. So Texans should still at least get the win, and I like the money line.
Yep. And then we got Bills and Dolphins. Bills looked really good in week one. Wasn't really expecting that too much out of them, and the Dolphins did struggle in the first half against the Jags. So for that reason, I'm liking the Bills plus 3.5 in this game. The Bills do typically show up at the start of the season, and although the first week wasn't the prettiest game, I do feel like they're going to look a lot better in this one. Dolphins definitely struggled a lot on offense. I feel like if they don't get that figured out, where the Bills can't take advantage in the first half, then it should be an easy cover for the Bills. But otherwise, I feel like it's going to be a really close game.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side for this one. I think the Dolphins cover the 3. I'd buy it down to 2.5 or just take the money line. But the Bills had Superman cape on for Josh Allen. He played a flawless game and they barely pulled it off. Where Cardinals, missed a wide open Marvin Harrison for the lead late in the game as well. And I don't think Josh Allen will play a perfect game again, especially in a short week on the road against a division rival. I think the Dolphins were a little shaken up by the Tyreek incident before the game and still ended up coming together at the end and pulled it off. And I don't think the Bills' defense is that good. So I do think that the Dolphins are able to expose that. I could see the game going a pretty high scoring game, but I think the Dolphins covered 3.
Right on. And then next is the Saints and the Cowboys. Right now, I'm just personally liking the Saints plus the points. Feels like early in the season when we've played the Saints in the past, they always play us pretty tough. I feel like the last few times it's been a pretty low scoring game. But I really can't tell because in week one, the Saints looked really good on the offensive side and so did the Cowboys. So don't really want to give too much away there, but I do think it will end up being a little bit lower scoring. And I do think because of that, the Saints will be able to cover the 7.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see the covering a 7 with a low scoring shootout as well. Obviously, I was surprised that we pulled it off against the Browns last week, but the defense did look really good.
Yeah.
Um, Deshaun Watson still hasn't looked good since he came back, though, so I'm not expecting that to continue, but I don't think Derek Carr is that good either. So I think the under 47 should be a good play. Like you said, we always play them in a low scoring game, so under 47 looks safe. I think the Cowboys win, but I'm not sure about covering the 7. So the under and the Cowboys money line I like.
Right on. And then we got the Lions and the Bucks. So far in that one, kind of leaning towards the Lions money line and the under 51.5. I just feel like the Buccaneers offense just obviously looked really good against the Commanders, and I just don't think Baker's going to be able to replicate that this week, especially against the Lions defense. The Lions defense is pretty solid. Obviously, Matt Stafford was able to get it going in the second half. They were able to run the ball a little bit, but I just feel like it's going to be a little bit too much for the Bucks this week. And then on top of that, the under just it feels right. I feel like the Lions D is going to be able to keep this game under, and it'll probably end up being like a 24-17 game.
Yeah, these teams are both really good against the run, so I think going under probably makes sense. Although that means they're going to be slinging the rock, so I could see a couple turnovers from Baker. I could see some from Jared Goff, but ultimately, I think at home for Detroit, I think they're a much better competition than Commanders. Obviously, giving them constant good field position with a new young team trying to figure it out. Um,
Yeah.
so I think the Lions cover 7 as well. I think that they'll end up winning that by a couple scores.
Right on. And then we got the Colts going in and playing the Packers. Obviously, the Packers lost Jordan Love in this first week for about 4 to 6, depending on how fast he heals up. Prayers up for him, honestly. I love Jordan Love. I was not huge on him when he got drafted, so I got to give him a little bit of props now. I feels like he is a franchise quarterback. He's leading that team in the right direction, so it does really suck to watch him get hurt in week one. So hope he gets better. Hope the Pack can kind of bring it back. But this week, I don't think they're going to be able to handle the Colts. I think the Colts this year they just got too much altogether. As a unit, their offense feels like it's going to click a lot better and a lot quicker this year. And on top of that, I feel like their defense got a lot better, and Steichen's done a really good job on just adding pieces to the defense.
Mhm.
So for that reason, I'm taking the Colts minus 2.5.
Yep, I like the Colts. I don't really like the 2.5 line. It seems kind of strange, so I'm just going to take the money line. But I definitely think the Colts pull it off. They obviously looked good against the Texans, and the Packers without Jordan Love should be struggling, even though it's at home. I do like the run game for the Colts. I think they're well coached as well under Steichen. So I think that either Anthony Richardson or Jonathan Taylor, if not both of them, get in the end zone. I think those are good player props for the game.
Yeah, I also love rushing attempts for Josh Jacobs because I just don't expect them to do much other than run the ball if Malik Willis is going to be in that quarterback. They might try and throw the ball around on third down and long, but first couple plays of the series, I'm expecting they're going to start running the ball a lot. So
Hmm.
yeah, Josh Jacobs over rushing attempts. I don't know what that line will be at that, so that will be interesting. Then we got Jets and the Titans. Um, I just expect the Jets to bounce back. I don't think the Titans are
Hmm.
that good. Pollard did look really good. I do think that Pollard's going to be a good back for them, but I just don't think they have the clutch factor to win the games this season. I would be surprised if they win like 4 or 5 games. So, and Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. The Jets didn't look terrible. They just had too many 3-and-outs, and then that turnover in the first half that just kind of took them out of the game. And it felt like from there they just really never got a foot back in. So props to the Niners for keeping them out of the game and playing a really solid first game. But I do think the Jets will be able to bounce back and take the Titans down.
Yeah, the Titans defense looked really good. Obviously, they gave up nothing against the Bears, who have a lot of talent all of a sudden, although they're young, so they got to piece it together.
Yeah.
I think Aaron Rodgers will bounce back. It's a weird line being four. So again, I think I'm just going to take the Jets. I do think they'll cover the four, but just because it's set so strange, Aaron Rodgers will you'd expect to get a bounce back win. I think he'll also start slinging the rock a little bit more this game.
Yeah.
So I do think a good play for this week might be Garrett Wilson to get in the end zone.
Right on. I love that. And then next one is the Falcons Eagles. I know we're both kind of on opposite sides of this one. I personally like the Eagles money line. They're opening it up at home. I feel like Saquon, with just the pieces they've added around Hurts, is going to be able to just motor them through this game, kind of the same way that it did in Week 1 in Green Bay. I don't expect it to be easy. I do think that Kirk ends up throwing a pick in this one again. And if he doesn't get settled in, then they could start to look to Penix over the next few weeks. Just because starting 0-3, 0-4 after paying a guy 180 million, you may need to start looking in a different direction. But yeah, I like the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to buy up to 7.5 and take the Falcons. They obviously just had a good defensive game against the Steelers, who they were preparing mostly for Russell Wilson, had Justin Fields, and only gave up 6 field goals. Not Justin, Jalen Hurts just had some turnover issues yet again, right where he left off last year. He had 15 picks, then he had two against the Packers. So I do think if it's a little more on that lower scoring side, which it seems to be going with the Falcons defense, I think that the Falcons should be able to cover a touchdown.
Right on. Then we got the Niners and the Vikings, another game that we're kind of like flipping back and forth on. I do like the Niners -5. I've been kind of going back and forth on this personally just because I was against the Niners week 1, thinking the Jets would be able to cover 4.5, but it just was so wrong. I was just like, oh crap, I can't go against the Niners again. So I am kind of like starting to second guess it a little bit, but so far I'm just thinking that the -5 is going to be the play.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like all it was 13-3 for the favorites to win last week, so I'm kind of feeling an underdog week. So because of that, I think that's why I'm taking Falcons. I'm taking some of those other teams, leaning on the Bears with the points. And again, here, the Vikings beat them last year, and obviously the Niners should go out there and smack them. But for whatever reason, I'm just going to take it 7.5. It's a Sam Darnold revenge game for sitting on the bench when he probably should have been starting last year. And so I like their offense. Like I said, with Kevin O'Connell as the coach, they got the weapons in Jettas, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones. Obviously, Hawkinson's still out right now, so that's a little bit of a downfall. But they're getting 7.5 at home, so I'm going to take it. Do I love it? Nope. But I'm gonna ride with the 7.5.
Yeah, right on. And then we got the Seahawks and the Pats. Another game that we're kind of flip flopped on. The Seahawks aren't great, but they did look pretty good in the second half against the Broncos D. For that reason, I do think that they're going to be able to keep that rolling as long as they're able to run the ball pretty well with Kenneth Walker. I feel like they're going to be able to carve up the Patriots defense kind of their liking. They weren't able to throw the ball that efficiently against Denver. And I know the Patriots have a really good secondary as well, but I expect them to try and get the ball to DK, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Lockett. Like they're gonna have to get the ball to these guys in order to win games. So for them to cover 2.5, I feel like they're gonna have to find these open guys. And I don't think the Patriots quite have it together yet. I feel like Week 1 was a little bit of a fluke, but I got to give props to Gerard Mayo. That team is definitely loving playing for him.
Yeah, I don't love the game, so I probably wouldn't touch it. But I'm leaning on a field goal at home for the Patriots, or even like a Kenneth Walker rushing touchdown. Like you said, the Bengals aren't a team that can run the ball well, and so I think they obviously got exposed. Like they always start slow. Uh, The Seahawks have been able to run it fairly effectively with Kenneth Walker. I know he had 100 yards last week, so he could find the end zone and keep it an interesting game.
Yep. And then we got the Chargers and the Panthers. I'm just loving Chargers -6.5. I feel like Harbaugh. I wasn't expecting the Chargers much out of them week one. I know I love the Raiders +3.5, +4.5, and it didn't come to fruition. But I must say I was impressed with the Chargers defense. Now, granted, they have been hit and miss over the last couple of years. So I don't know if this is going to be a miss, but it is against the Panthers. They're getting 6.5, and I feel like if Herbie's able to punch the ball in the end zone a couple times, they should be able to cover 6.5 against a pretty poor Panthers team.
Yeah, I think that it's a very interesting line after watching the Chargers go get a solid win against a division rival in the Raiders. But the Panthers suck, so I'm just going to take the 6.5 or six line that the Chargers are getting. I don't love it, but that's what I'm going to ride with.
Yep. And if you're scared of that, we can always take the money line too. Chargers money line definitely feels free. Then Browns and the Jags. Both these teams had really rocky week ones, with the Jags obviously losing to the Dolphins and then the Browns losing to the Cowboys. Both those teams actually, Browns lost at home, but I think the Jags, were they the home team in week one?
No, they're
Yeah,
at
they were
Miami.
away. So yeah, the Jags obviously struggled in the second half, had a little bit of a comeback, but I feel like I was talking to you about this before the podcast. I feel like ETN's going to have a bit of a bounce back game. He turned the ball over on the goal line and just had a couple like uncharacteristic turnovers in week one that I feel like they're going to be able to clean up, and that should be able to get them to cover this game by 2.5.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this game goes. I think it's kind of a coin flip. I'm going to take the Jags just because they're at home. And they did look like the better team in week one. The Browns looked horrendous, and so I don't want to go with them now, even though I'm kind of leaning on them to cover. Just because the Jags are at home and they should have won that game. Like you said, ETN fumbled at the goal line, and then they lost on a game on a walk-off field goal. So I don't love the three, but I definitely think they'll win it at home.
Yep, right on. Then we got the Steelers and the Broncos. Oh man, I'm glad that Bo was able to cover the 7 in week one, but I just don't have much faith against that Steelers defense. I mean, I just feel like between the Steelers D and the Niners D, it's just like not fun to play those games. So I just feel like the Steelers money line is the way to go here. Most likely, probably going to be another under, but I don't know where that line is, so I'm not going to touch it. But
Mhm.
yeah, for now, I'm just going to touch the Steelers money line. I feel like that's the play here.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning on the opposite. I feel like Denver's going to come out and cover that 3.5. It's again, it's an underdog week, so we're just going to ride with it. I don't like the game at all. The plays that I like are Bo Nix to throw a pick and Justin Fields to throw a pick. Both
Yes.
defenses are decent. Like you said, Steelers defense is good. Broncos isn't great, but neither is Justin Fields. So I definitely think there's going to be turnovers, especially being in Denver, could create some issues there. Um, I would have been interested to see Russ Cook at Denver,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's not going to
That would have
happen.
been cool.
So I'm kind of thinking Denver comes out and beats him because he's now on the other side.
Yeah. Cool. And then yeah, so go Bo. Week two, baby. Come on, get a dub for us. And then Bengals and the Chiefs. Honestly, another game that's like the Bengals start rough. The Chiefs are at home here. It's kind of tough to pick a winner because the Bengals do play the Chiefs really well. But just because it's early in the season, I don't like the way the Bengals looked in week one. I don't think that they're going to be able to look much better in week two. Granted, I don't know how you can look much worse, but at the same time, it is the Chiefs' defense, so I just expect the Chiefs to be able to win. So I'm taking the money line.
Yeah, I don't dislike that. I'm leaning on, again, underdog week. I think the Bengals are going to come out. They need a bounce back. They're 1-8 in Joe Burrow's career in weeks one and two, so they're looking at probably another loss. But he always plays well against Mahomes and
Yes.
Lamar and like the Josh Allen. He's 5-1 against them in his career. So I do think it'll be a good game, even though I don't think T. Higgins is playing. I'm pretty sure he's out again. So with that, I definitely like Jamar Chase because someone has to step up. So I think he
Yeah.
probably puts on a show. Probably 10 catches, 150 yards, and a score, maybe two. So I definitely think getting him in the end zone is a good pick, and I'm going to take that from 5 or 6 up to 7.5 and see if the Bengals can cover.
Yeah, and also have to talk about real quick. In week one, the Bengals just looked like all out of sorts without Mixon. I didn't really like they didn't run the ball very well, and then watching Mixon run the ball all over the Colts was freaking really interesting because it's like, dang, the Bengals might have taken a real step back, but this week I feel like it's going to be able to tell a lot for sure for them.
Hmm. Yeah, should be a
Um,
good game.
yep. And then the last game is the Rams and the Cardinals. Right now, the Cardinals, I think, are favorites in that game. I don't
Yep.
know exactly why, considering they were the worst team, I think, in the NFL last season. But hey, they looked pretty good against the Bills. They just weren't able to kind of close it out. I do think that their defense is going to struggle in this one. But I also don't see the Rams really performing all that great without Puka. So I'm kind of leaning on the under for that one. But that's kind of my only play.
Yeah, this game's interesting because if you didn't show me a line, I would have told you the Rams are going to win. But the
Yeah.
fact that, like you said, it's weird. Like, why are the Cardinals favorites to win this one? Uh, it's got me thrown off, and so because of that, I am going to take the Cardinals money line. I think that they win this, and they should have won against the Bills. Obviously, covered the 6.5, but missed a wide open Marv for a touchdown at the end of the game, which would have taken the lead. Not necessarily guaranteed the win. Bills would have had a shot to have the ball. But because of that, I think they didn't get the ball to Marvin week 1. I think they are going to get the ball to him in week 2, and I think he scores.
Yeah, right on. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for week 2 of the NFL and week 3 of CFB. Thank you for everybody that's been kind of tuning in, hanging with us. We're really looking forward to the rest of this year. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yep.
Peace.
See you.